it's time for RTB 101, where we discuss practical questions to equip you to share your faith more effectively. And here to help me talk about a very common question, why are there so many churches, is my colleague, philosopher and theologian Kenneth Samples. Welcome, Ken.
Hi, Krista. Good to be with you.
You know, I don't know about you, but I have encountered many non-Christians who put forth a concern about our faith as Christians, that maybe Christianity isn't true because there are so many different kinds of churches. You know, when I drive down the street just here in my town, I could see 5 to 10 different churches, sometimes right next to each other on the same street.
Right.
What's going on there? Maybe help us begin to think about that.
Yeah, I get that objection as well, Krista. I've had skeptics say, look, you make an interesting case for the truth of Christianity, but which church? Where do I belong? How can it be true? I think often non-Christians fail to appreciate that while there are many churches, that there is a core orthodoxy. That is, all of these branches of Christendom, Eastern Orthodox, Roman Catholic, and the denominations of Protestantism, conservative Christendom, they share a great deal of common ground when it comes to doctrine, when it comes to moral values, and to a worldview. And so it looks like that it is deeply divided, but I think what's missing is an appreciation for the deep common ground that we all share.
I think that's a very important point, because when we look at Christianity from a historical perspective, we actually see, a great unity for most of the church's history. There was East and West, and there were some differences in terms of emphasis and some slight issues there. But really what people are seeing is Protestants are very diverse. And that doesn't come about until much later in the church's history. So, how would you characterize this diversity among Protestants? Are these superficial divisions? Are they meaningful divisions that cancel each other out? Help us think about that a bit.
Yeah, I think if you think, first of all, about the 3 branches of Christendom, Eastern Orthodoxy, Roman Catholicism, and then Protestantism, if you look, for example, to the Apostles' Creed or to the Nicene Creed, you see this kind of collection of fundamental beliefs, and it is a profound common ground. Of course, the Orthodox and Catholics had a division, 1054. The Protestant Reformation takes place in the 16th century. There is more division within Protestantism, and I would say, as a Protestant Christian myself, I think Protestants need to give greater attention to unity. But again, most of the differences within Protestantism are secondary. When it comes to the Trinity, when it comes to Jesus being God and man, when it comes to Jesus' atonement on the cross, his resurrection, there is going to be solid agreement among conservative Christians. Of course, you always have the more liberal or mainline churches that have departed. But there is, again, a strong unity among all 3 branches, and a strong unity among the major branches within the Protestant faith as well.
I think that's a very important point, because many people may not have heard of this thing called the Nicene Creed, but that does kind of form a real core set of beliefs that we would say wasn't invented by the church, in the 300s. Rather, it's a summary, it's an accurate summary of what the church believed about the Bible itself. And so I think it's important for people to understand that there is that unifying foundation at our core. When we think about some of these differences, let's just take one of them, baptism. Some people dunk. They put the person all the way in the water. Other people sprinkle. What would we look for like that common foundation between us as Protestants?
Yeah, again, referencing the creeds, Krista, even non-denominational churches, and there are plenty of them, even if they don't officially recite the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed, sometimes they'll sing the creed, or they have some kind of doctrinal statement that covers that kind of ground. Certainly, it's true that there are going to be questions about things like baptism or the Lord's Supper. There's going to be a diverse viewpoints about those. But when it comes down to the essential elements, like who is Jesus, how do I become right with God, how do I live out the Christian life, I think, again, this is where the non-Christian does not see the important common ground that extends not only to doctrine, but to moral values and to the worldview. We all share a very common Christian worldview.
So when my non-Christian friends bring up this issue of divisions in the church, have you had success with using this approach of drawing attention to actually what unifies us first? Has that helped you in conversations?
I think so. I think it helps me to give a historical context to my non-Christian friends and to say, look, yeah, there are divisions. Sometimes the divisions can be rather sharp, but look at this common body of belief that has existed through the centuries. And all of the major branches of Christendom affirm it, as does Protestantism. And so I think that does help. I also like to encourage other Christians. I mean, I like to say, Krista, that I contend for the truth, but I pursue unity, and I try to do all of this by sharing charity. And I think Christians need to realize that non-Christian, when we debate our denominational differences, there's often non-Christians watching. And so we should start with our unity, and we should extend charity whenever we can contend for the truth.
I think it's a really important point. It reminds me of Jesus' words in John 17, where he prays for unity among his people, just as he and the Father are one. I think Protestants, we could do more to stand for unity, to start with unity before we get into all the division and what makes us different denominationally. So that's a really helpful way of thinking about it. I want to encourage all of our viewers, if you haven't yet done so, go check out Ken's blog. It's called Reflections. You can access that by going to reasons.org and search for Reflections. Thanks for joining me, Ken.
Glad to be with you.